Michael Ware here again with Iowa Firearms Coalition's Warrior Wednesday. We have with us one of the original warriors, recent warriors, I should say. I would tell you the founding fathers probably qualify for that, but we have with us Reverend Kenn Blanchard, black man with a gun. You may know him from many different circles, most recently as a bluesician, but will you be kind enough to just walk us through who you are, a little bit of the history, because there's a lot of folks that know you and some that may not, and you've got such a past. It's going to be hard for us to pack it all in, so I'll let you lead. How about that?
That works for me, man. Thanks for letting me be on the show. First off, and foremost,
you're here, man. Thank you.
For everybody who has never seen my mug, I apologize right off the bat for the lighting in my studio right now. I have it set for a green screen and a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm doing right now. I started podcasting in 2007, I believe it was. And the reason I did that was because I had done the firearms thing for a minute. And when I say that, I'm saying back in 1991, I became a Second Amendment activist. And before that, just a firearms instructor that wanted to start his own thing. So I was at the range nearby, and I wanted to train police officers. I wanted to train security guards. And I found out that the people who looked like me in my neighborhood had no clue about firearms, about safety, about the Second Amendment, about the right to keep and bear arms. And before I could even put my shingle out and make any money whatsoever as a trainer, because I had trained and been trained by some of the best in the world. I was a federal police officer, a trainer. I worked in the Central Intelligence Agency for a little bit. I had done some cool stuff, and I wanted to share what I could share with my community. My community didn't want to hear any of that. So I had to put down the instructor and become a historian and an activist. And that took me on my path to meet the National Rifle Association. And then I found out that there was a whole world I didn't even know existed as far as people who were fighting for the right to keep and bear arms. And back then in the 90s, early 90s, 91, concealed carry wasn't like it used to be or like it is now. So I became a part of this traveling roadshow. The NRA gave me media training and helped me understand how to debate and how to watch out for traps and to learn the whole political system, how things work. And it was a great education. And I started meeting people, and I was a part of the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action. I was a part of this thing. And we went around when it first started to, the first place was Virginia. Yeah, went to Richmond. And I had never been put up in a fancy hotel before, and I never had spoke before council people and senators and representatives. That was all new to me. And they said, well, we wanted you to talk about the right to keep and bear arms as a person of color. And they sent this guy to my room, and he wrote this long professional speech. And I said, who talks like this? I said, I'll do this, but only if I can do it in my own words. And he said, I don't know. We just spent all this money and got all this stuff to get you here. And okay, go ahead. So when my turn came, I spoke from the heart, and the place was silent. And I thought I had messed up. And one of the NRA people came to me and says, you left them speechless. This never happens here. Concealed carry passed in Virginia right after that. And then they rushed me to Texas, and I became a spokesperson in Texas. And then we went from Texas to South Carolina and to Michigan and to Wisconsin. And I was on a road trip, man. I was like 4-0. It was going really well. Sometimes I would be up against people like Jesse Jackson or Reverend Al Sharpton, or back in the day, before social media, the one-on-ones can get pretty hectic. You might get cussed out because there was no television back then to tell you, nobody was going to Google you like they did then. So it was in your face sometimes. And I went where nobody else could go before. So it was kind of cool. And then my mission was to help bring people of color to other gun industry, other gun clubs and things, just trying to show that y'all had this whole thing wrong. You think these guys are racist? No, you're more racist than they are. And you put up these walls. And I became the ambassador. And the next thing I know, I was helping Jews for the preservation of ownership. Aaron Zellman was kind of coaxing me on the back end. He was like, "Man, you're too nice, Rev. You gotta get in their face." And I thought, dude, this is not how I talk. And he's like, "I know, but you got this platform and you got to go with it." And Aaron was pushing, and Aaron was just like Mr. Pratt from the GOA. He was an in your face kind of guy. And I had those two guys in my back, and they were propelling me forward to reach the masses. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And I just kept on doing that thing until I got to Maryland, and Maryland I bombed. It took a long time for Maryland to get concealed carry. But it propelled me to, I went to SHOT Show back in the day when they thought bloggers and podcasters were aliens, and they didn't want us on a bus. We were second-class citizens. I heard some insults that nobody even hears anymore. I remember going to SHOT Show that I went to back in the early 90s. It was a bus full of writers and professional journalists. And they said, "Yeah, I've been working 15 years to get my byline and to get on the front page. And here comes some blogger dude with like 1 million listeners or readers or whatever. And now they're invited here." And I thought, wow. And then fast forward about 4 years, the whole bus was bloggers and podcasters. It totally changed. And some of the senior guys either got out of the business or they took their thing and moved it on up. So I've been in the middle of a lot of stuff. And then somewhere in there, right around 2000, it was Y2K. Everybody was freaking out. What are we going to do? End of the world. I created a gun club, became a national club, but I wasn't ready for the thing that happened. People started making me out like I was Moses or something, and they were just following me. I'd go to the range and get credit for every Black person in the range. They go, "Oh, some of your people were here earlier," and I'm thinking, they came on their own. I got nothing to do with that. It was just this weird thing that I wasn't ready for, and I think God was, though, because soon after that, I got the call in the ministry, but I didn't feel that it was my place. So I volunteered as a janitor for this one church in DC, and I gave the people the blues because here's this guy who rides his Harley to church in the evenings, and he's protecting the people who are in the choir, and he's opening doors, and he's feeding them hungry. And I was doing a whole bunch of stuff after hours that a lot of the daytime folks didn't do. People were coming to get served, and I was helping them. I mean, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to. I got in trouble for it once. They're like, "You can't just empty the pantry out and feed all these people." I'm thinking, why not? They're hungry. So I got in trouble the craziest ways. But the next thing I know, I was in ministry. And 10 days before 9/11, I did my trial sermon in a Baptist church and became like an itinerant minister. And they were still kind of weird on me because the Washington Post at the time, or it was a Times, I forget which paper, they published a really big article called "Preaching God and Guns" and had me on the front page with my 45 and my Bible in the hand. And the church was ready to kick me out of there. So I was in odds with the Black church. Other ministers were talking and whispering, and it was just a mess. So I went through this thing where, then I took "Black Man with a Gun" and trademarked it and ran with it. I had it on the back of my pickup truck. And then my job got after me. They were like, "Well, who else are you influencing? Because we know what we've done, we trained you with. So are you an enemy of the state?" So I had, my career was in jeopardy. I had a whole bunch of stuff going on. The church didn't like me. My job didn't like me. But the people that I was with loved me. So I continued to preach and to teach, became a pastor of my own little church. Still caught grief in there because every once in a while, some international media would show up and say, "Hey, we are from France and we come to see the Black man with a gun." And my deacons would almost pass out. They're like, "Oh." And I'm thinking, who cares? As long as they come, because if you come here, you're going to hear a sermon, and then you're going to wonder, how does this gun thing work? And that happened a lot. I remember when one of the stars from a Harry Potter movie came to DC, and she says, well, I gotta get you in my movie, in my documentary, even though it has nothing to do with Charles Dickens, because I'm here and I want to see what's this gun thing. So I actually took her to the range, and she was as anti-gun as you could get. But I had Marianne Margulies. I think she was Professor Sprout in the early shows. I had the weirdest things happen. I mean, I had like stars would come to do other things, pop in, talk to me, scream at me, tell me that I was wrong. I changed their mind, and off they go. A lot of my best work is not documented. Again, all the age, time before gospel, before Google and social media. And after 30 years, the podcast came in 2007 because I wanted to be a broadcaster at one time. And I found out how treacherous it was in radio. Like if you didn't hit your mark in 45 days, you got booted. And that wasn't a good thing for a family person. So when podcasting came, it scratched the itch for me. And I was podcasting out of my basement using a laptop and a whole bunch of crazy gear. And that thing grew. It was called the Urban Shooter in the beginning. And we went through a whole bunch of stuff. I tried everything. Throw it up on a wall, see if it stuck. I had comedians on there. I had all the people that I had met during my activism. I had chance because I got a civil rights award from the NRA back in the 90s for bringing Eddie Eagle to the nation's capital to a very big rally at the monument. And we not sold out, but gave out all the pro-gun literature, which never happens. It was like in August, and Eddie Eagle almost passed out because of the heat. But tons of good stuff, met great people, got a chance to be on stage with, just the leaders of our movement and be a part of the beginning of what's now. And then again, after 30 years, I thought, I'm done. You gotta find a day where you call it. And I thought, our subject is evergreen. Freedom never quits. You have to always fight for it. But it doesn't have to be me. And there's quite a few people who can take it up now, and maybe it's time for me to do something else. And almost everything kind of came at the same time. I had stopped being a pastor. I'm serving at a church with my assistant, who's now the pastor of another church. And my wife got ill 4 years ago, right when she retired. And it changed my life. I became a caregiver. I couldn't retire. I had to go back to work. I had to find another job to pay for all the stuff because in this day of economy, unless you hit a certain tax, limit, you don't get freebies. You got to pay for your own stuff. So caregiving and the guitar popped up, in case you're wondering. I was losing my mind. I was depressed and sad, and COVID hit. The world has segregated everybody again. We're stuck in silos. We're wondering what's going to happen. And that piece of furniture that I've been carrying around for 40 years, I picked it up and started playing it and thought, you know what, this is better than a fidget spinner. Maybe I can just pass the time away and maybe I'll get good at it. And that thing became like my tool of common sense. It helped me. It brought me back, got me to a place of peace. And my wife's still sick. I'm still caregiving. That thing still messes with me. But now 4 years in, I'm playing like a fiend. My goal is to be really, really good by the time I'm 70. So after that, I don't know what's going to happen. But my goal is to be really, really good by the time I'm 70. And right now, I'm performing at nursing homes, and private parties, on YouTube. I'm practicing. I wear different clothes, different hats. I'm making myself happy, and I'm learning how to perform and get out of my own way and not take life so serious, and still encouraging people. And that's my life right now. I'm all caught up.
Man, I got to tell you, that That is a rainbow of colors. I mean, you're describing being ahead of the curve in the Second Amendment realm. You're describing being ahead of the curve, getting in trouble for being salt and light, you know, with the church,
Yes.
then becoming a pastor. Then you're talking about obviously your how committed you are to a wife, to your spouse, you know, to be a caregiver and do all the things that we know that we should do when we say yes, and we commit for life and you know enter this covenant. And now you're talking about finding a way for release and rejuvenation. I got to tell you, Ken, this is fantastic. We probably need to delve into each one of these in their own episode. But first of all, I do have a question. I mean, you mentioned about offering testimony and for regarding Carrie and whatnot, and you're up against folks like Reverend Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, that kind of thing. I'm curious. Now, yes, I'm completely biased, and there's two sides to every coin, but I believe I can prove how important and the premise of the Second Amendment is what it was intended to be, and is the way it had ought to be revered and used and avoided, if you want to assume that. Knowing all that, did you ever feel like, listen, I don't care if you guys have more money, I don't care if you guys get in the news more, I'm on the side of righteousness? Did you ever kind of have that? Or were these dog in the street tear each other up squabbles? I'm curious how that went.
No, I always knew I was right. And the more I talked to these guys, I don't care whether it was Tavis Smiley or any of the talking heads that you see opposed to Freedom Now. Once, before the camera got on, when we're in the green room, a lot of the times they would tell me about their uncle or their grandfather or somebody in their family that used to hunt, used to own firearms. They would tell me a story about the place they used to go out and shoot and how it was a rite of passage. And then as soon as they said, all right, we're on in 1, 2, 3, we're on, they would totally switch flip the script on me and become so racist, so biased, so trifling that I wanted to just take my face off the screen. And at first it caught me off guard because, and I think that's why they did it. But it made me realize that for a lot of people, it's an act and it's a character. You have to get. Let me back up real quick. Now that I'm talking all freely, here's me. When I am me, I stutter, I stammer, my voice goes up and down all over the place. But I've been professionally taught how to speak, and so if I am comfortable with you, you get the bad grammar, you get it, whatever. So my mind just clicked. It's like, dude, you're on camera. How about slowing it down a little bit? So when I am performing, then my words are more succinct. That I'm talking more professional, all that good stuff. Well, they are doing that thing the whole time. Everything you see is an act, and they've made a line in the sand that they have to be anti-gun, anti-rights, anti-freedom. And common sense doesn't mean anything because the line in the sand is going to get them the audience that buys into that stuff. They don't believe it though. They themselves hypocrites for days, but they act as if you're the crazy one. When if they could get a concealed carry, they'd have one.
So you're telling me that you're rehearsing so that you can deliver on behalf of your movement, on behalf of your mission, and do so well. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's just what people should do. And you're saying they're rehearsing to play a part, but yes, they don't believe what they're selling. Just so, do they actually agree with you and I, or they just don't care? They know where their bread's buttered.
They agree, but you'll never say it.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, that's
almost I'd say 80% of them either have a concealed carry permit or they have bodyguards where they don't need one. They totally, it's the worst thing when you get real fired up. You know how our side, we're passionate about freedom. We're passionate about life, about America. They're passionate about themselves. And they take all that passion that we have for everybody else and put it to yourself. That's them. So no matter what is going on, as long as they're okay, they don't care what they say. They don't care who they inflame. It'll make you angrier. Like, you can respect somebody who disagrees with you.
Yeah.
If you think, all right, he or she really believes this, but for the most part, they don't.
Man, that's a tough pill to swallow. I almost wish I hadn't asked you about that. That makes this job a little harder, kid. I mean, okay, so I've had this. The listeners here that are routine are going to know about what I'm going to lead in to say right now. I have encouraged people, no matter who they are, to use the Second Amendment and people's feelings about it as a litmus test, as a quick, down and dirty character test. Because the truth of the matter is, what I have, and you're going to have to, you've been in this for a long time. You're very learned. So if you think that I'm off here, I really want you to correct me on it. But here's the statement that I would make. When you think about the Second Amendment and you think about people who want to curtail it or take it or do something with it, what they're really telling you is they're giving you insight into themselves, because it isn't like Ken has $100. I want it. I reach through the screen and I take your $100 away. You had it. Now I have it. I've got it. It's mine, and I'm keeping it or doing something with it. That's one way of taking something. But in the terms of the Second Amendment, that isn't what happens. They don't take from you something that they want for themselves. They take from something they don't want you to have. So it ceases being about you, about the Second Amendment, and it starts being about the fact that they can't handle it. They can't handle that you have this freedom. They can't handle that you have this access. They can't handle the fact that you can say no to them or whatever it may be. So really, it's a reflection on themselves and how insecure they are, or the problems associated with their thought, because they're not trying to take your money. They're not trying to take your property. They're not trying to take your wife. They're not trying to take your future. They're saying, you got something that I'm not comfortable with you having, and I got to get that away from you.
Totally agree.
Am I wrong about that, or what?
No,
I mean, what do you
not
think
at
about
all. And it's even worse, because not only the celebrities are in this mode, but the politicians. I live near the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. There is not a hard time where I'll pass by a state senator or a congressperson downtown. I'll see them at the pub or the bar somewhere. They're doing something. They're not real. So when you come here, when you come to Washington and you want to see your state senator, I know this is a blanket statement, but I've never said this before, but I got to tell you guys, when you see these guys up, well, if you make an appointment and you come see them, I want to see my representative. I'm flown from Idaho to get here. I'm not sure about your representative though, but your state senator. But for a lot of states, you won't even see that person. They're going to send the aide to you. They're going to give you some fluffy person to intervene because they're too busy. And you politely take it because, you've flown and you've come this far. But the sincerity, the passion that you have, it is not in this building. It is not in this town. They also are celebrities. It's a fakeness that if you saw them at a cookout, it'd be a different person. And I really get upset when somebody says, yeah, I'm coming to DC. I'm going to meet my representative. And they leave not real pumped about that interchange. They'll say, well, I saw a whole lot of monuments and I saw some good stuff, went to Arlington and I did this. We kind of glaze over the null, the negative, the emptiness, the brush away that we got with the people we thought want to help us. It's a mess here in DC.
Can you escape it? Can you serve your country in Congress as a House rep, a senator? Can you do it and not become stained, imbrued, or otherwise tainted with your time there? I mean, surely somebody's got to make it through this.
I think you have to come in that way and then leave. If you stay here longer than 5 years, more than a few terms, you'll be jaded. Something happens to our people here. They lose being of the people, and they become of themselves. And they start doing stuff that you don't see, But it's on the back end of bills and legislation that don't help us. It's a hot mess here.
My wife is in a study with a friend, and they're talking about Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah. And she's asking me these questions. She's like, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? I said, well, I don't know whether Lot's wife and one of the daughters or whatever, I don't remember if they loved it too much and they couldn't bear. I don't know if they loved the people or they had to turn around and take a look. But even after they had escaped,
it's home.
They turned around to look.
It's home. It's home. Sometimes I've traveled to 15 different countries, and not all of them were nice. And I always wondered, why are you still here? We get used to anything and think it's the norm. You get put down by somebody enough, you start believing it yourself. Or if you don't believe it, you don't fight it anymore.
Right.
For a long time, there were a lot of people who didn't know they had the right to keep and bear arms. They thought that was only for the other people, for the rich people. If I carry a gun, I'm going to have to, because they had been conditioned to fear to be free. They thought I was crazy. They're like, man, I'm with you, but should you be saying that stuff out loud? I mean, I heard that more than once from senior African-American people, uncles and people that are like, yeah, I've been pro-gun. I've been a member of the NRA since 1956. I'm thinking, really? He goes, yeah, look at, he had all these like decals and stuff on the back of his truck. And I thought, I've never heard you say anything. He said, well, we can't. Why not? And I had to learn that whole cultural thing from my own people of the stigmas and the fears. Some of it was righteous. In fact, that there was a time when if you mentioned that you had a firearm, you could get locked up for no reason at all. And that thing just kind of perpetuated into generations fearing. And we had family members who were like everybody who was in the South who hunted and had their land pro-gun all day. And then when they moved to the city, the aunts and the mothers and the grandparents were like, don't bring that country stuff in here. It was kind of like covered over. They just said that country stuff. What they were saying was, don't bring your pro-gun stuff here because here you'll get locked up. And I want to keep my men out of jail. I want to keep my men safe. Leave that stuff, that country stuff down home. And that was a subtle way to keep us from being pro-gun. But every law enforcement officer, every veteran was pro-gun for the most part.
You're describing, well, for people that look like me, talking with people that look like you, who have visual differences, I want to be careful that I don't disrespect anybody or say something that's presumptuous, which makes me an idiot. So I'm trying to avoid being an idiot. But what I'm saying is, you got to correct me, Ken, if I walk into Idiotville, I want you to pluck me right back out. Okay. So you're describing a cultural problem that I want to believe, that I pray has been passed. So I keep asking myself, why do we seem to revert back to it? Why do we go back to it? We had Jim Crow laws on the books here in Iowa not that long ago. Yeah. And we have been endeavoring to get them off or take care of the laws that were directly influenced by Jim Crow himself. And we've not got that done yet, but we've largely got that taken care of. And so I'm sitting here as a white guy in his 50s, the epitome of the Second Amendment type, so to speak, saying, why do we even talking about this anymore? This is behind us, and the only thing that we're doing is propagating it by talking about it more. But the truth of the matter is, I haven't had the same kinds of experiences that you have. So I don't want to be disrespectful when I say we got to move past this, because people quickly remind me, you don't have any idea what my problems are. And so how do I help with that? What do I do to encourage people to move up and beyond, no matter who or what they are? I mean, what encouragement or what words of wisdom are you able to offer me and the people listening? Because frankly, I think we need to know that.
The bad news is, like my grandfather said, you can't push a rope. Some people you just can't get through. They have so many filters, so many negative things. The best thing you can say is, I'm on your side. And not say another word. I'm on your side. And let them ask the question. Let them come if they want to. We do a lot of damage to ourselves. Me personally, when I first started this gun rights thing for me, and the Marine Corps messed me up because I was told, don't watch out, man. The white man ain't gonna get you when you're in the Marine Corps. Don't join some other military service because the Marine Corps was the most racist. It was the last to integrate. We did have some racial issues, and when I was in there back in 1980, but because of that and what I've learned, it changed my whole life. So when I became a gun rights person, and the first time I went to a big outing, everybody looked like you, dude. Everybody had like full beard, and except for ZZ Top, which is like my favorite group, nobody had that thing happen. So they're like, why aren't you afraid? I say, guess what? This guy right here who looks like ZZ Top has said some of the nicest stuff and been more behind my back, more upfront, more real, more honest about his ignorance than any of you guys ever have. You guys stick out there, you'll put your neck out and say how, like you just said, I don't know anything. Dude, that's humble. How can you not make a bridge from that? But my folks are like, no, it's never gonna happen. This and they just put up a barricade that you can't cross. So I've spent the last 30 years of my life fixing that. And it kept happening. It's funny that once you become an ambassador, once you see the hot buttons, and you have to just one-on-one. I had a guy in South Carolina. He was a minister, and he was also a congressman. And he said, all right, I know the NRA sent you here to talk to me about this bill. And I said, yeah, they did. He said, how can you in your conscience talk about putting guns in the hands of more black men that are shooting themselves? And I was like, are we too dumb not to do wrong to each other? Are you saying that because we're black? And I had to go that way. I said, because of our color, we're too ignorant to learn how not to kill each other. And he was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I said, we're perpetuating the same thought. How about if we train our men and women and our kids and our boys and our girls, and we show them that this thing means something, that there's a history behind this thing. There was a time when we couldn't own a firearm. How about if you learn about the history of this firearm and where it came from? And it changed everything. But you got to get in the weeds, and sometimes you have to fight people. You don't win that day. Like, I'll give you another example. I was in Baltimore, and we were doing the Moms Demand Action, and they had pictures of all their slain children on these pictures on their chest, and they were saying, yeah, the NRA is killing our kids. And my son this lady was testifying, my son was shot 2 o'clock in the morning right here in the very corner. And if it wasn't for the gun, and everybody who was with me was like, man, I'm glad I'm not up next. So I said, all right, my turn. So when I stood up, I said, with all respect, at 2 a.m., my children are in their beds. They're not on the street selling pharmacy. What happened to your son was a result of his lifestyle, his actions, maybe even the lack of parenting, but it's not the gun. She threw her papers up in the air. I can't believe, and she stormed out of the thing, and everybody was like, did you just piss off all the mothers in this room? I was like, yeah, probably. But when I went right after her, and in the hallway, she was crying, she was mad. She's like, I can't believe you said that on television in front of all these people. You made me look like a fool. And I said, listen, sister, you're blaming the gun. And somebody paid for you to come here to pimp your child on your shirt. They don't care about your grief. It's a whole thing happening here. I'm trying to protect our people. She was like, yeah, you're right. And then she went away. And I thought, Nobody saw that part. Nobody, we missed all the good stuff. But we almost hugged it out in the hallway outside the courtroom. That thing was, I was wore out. I was tired. I've been tired like that for many times when it's just the fixing thing is one person at a time. None of my broadcasts, none of my podcasts, none of the times I've spoken in front of people with large groups did I do any change. The same with, except for one time, except for the time there was the shooter at the Navy Yard. That one was different. I had learned from my previous things, and I mean, just go there while I'm there. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much. There was a shooter at the Navy Yard, and a veteran had come in and shot up the workplace. CNN called and said, "Hey, we need a pro-gun person to talk about this thing. Do you want to come down to the Navy Yard?" I said, "Yeah, but you got to come get me." So a car came, picked me up, brought me down to the scene of the crime. It was, I think you had a picture up a little while ago of me talking to two reporters. Had my suit on, and I had 2 minutes. They said, "All right, Mr. Blanchard, what do you have to say about what happened?" And normally, yeah, that one, that's the right one. "What do you have to say?" And I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, right now, there are veterans all over the world that are going through a tough time, and each one of us knows one. How about if we take care of our brothers and sisters in uniforms? How about you grab your coastie buddy, your sailor, your Marine, your Army guy, and you hug them. You make sure that they don't become like the guy that's in this room right here and across the street that's just got through this whole thing. It's all based on some mental stuff happening. Don't blame the firearm. Don't blame how he went off. Blame the reasons. There's some stuff happening, and you know that brother, that sister that's going through a tough time. How about we start loving on each other? My church is around the corner, and the doors are open. But you got to know that. And the newspaper looked at me like, that was not what we were looking for. But thank you, Reverend Blanchard. And that was my 2 minutes. My pager, remember then back in the days we had pagers. My pagers buzzed for an hour. I was getting texts from all over the country. Veterans that had recently separated were saying, "Dude, you even mentioned the coasties." He's like, "Thank you. Nobody ever said that." Only person who was mad was my pastor at the time, because it looked to him as if I was grandstanding, and they didn't invite him down to the camera, so he was mad. So that's since left that church. But it's just how it goes. It's just how it goes.
Okay, I want to switch gears for just a second here.
I know that was a tangent. Sorry about that, man.
No, not that at all. I mean, to be completely frank, some of the most enjoyable times that I've had, and I'm a little selfish, I should be thinking about the viewer all the time, all right, the listener, but some of the best times that I've had doing this podcast, and I've enjoyed doing it, I really have been when the rabbits have been chased. It's because I believe that people come to listen to things like this, and you're going to need to tell me because you've done it for a while. I believe that people come here because they want to hear the truth. They want to hear the truth as you and I understand it. They want to see a little bit about us. They want to learn our perspective. And when we're genuine and we chase the rabbit, metaphorical or otherwise, then there's plenty of room for that. In fact, I think that that's probably what podcasting ultimately ought to be. So with that, when we do this, we need to throw a shout out to the people that make this possible. So this podcast and the things about this are largely offered because we have a membership that donates to the organization and they pay for their membership. So we appreciate those people. Thank you sincerely. Go to iowafc.org and become a member or donate if you choose. We'll all the pennies add up. Thank you very much. And it's an all volunteer organization, so we're glad to have them. And so with that, I want to also encourage people. We have a raffle now that we use for the purposes of funding. It's too simple. Go to iowafc.org. There's a tab for the raffle. You can buy a ticket. Also, our trusted partners, these people who are offering membership, our membership, discount codes, tangible goods, whatever they may be, so that when you can shop with people and support people that support you. So be thinking about that. And this is the nature of podcasts, so we can link people up, because Ken, I want people to buy from people that support them, because there's lots and lots of people you can buy from out there. And some of them will use the money that you give them to work against you, and that's very hard. So to bring this full circle back to the podcast itself, and you told me you got on a group of people, on a bus with a bunch of people that were saying, I don't like these young podcasting whippersnappers, get on out of here with that, get off of my lawn, whatever it may be. I mean, I don't know why, but the first thing I thought of is Rosa Parks on the back of the bus. What are you doing? And then, you fast forward and like, these guys have radically altered the information flow, what people spend their time doing. I mean, I look at numbers for CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, all these places, and then add them all together, and then go take one look at Joe Rogan and Sean Ryan and Theo Vaughn and all these different, all these people offering their own show, so to speak. It's unbelievable how mainstream media and these people that were doggedly looking at you saying, I don't think this guy's got a future. No, by the way, he's gouging into my precious time. It's just completely changed. So what do you think about that? I mean, you've been ahead of the curve on this, and I'm very impressed by that. So did you actually have to persevere, or did you know, hey, this is going to work, or did you just do it because you liked it? I'm curious about that.
No, I did it because I liked it. I was hoping that I would do something would snag, and I would just become rich beyond dreams, that I'd find my thing. But I learned probably right in the middle that being rich wasn't my thing. It was to continue to help people. I was like a mountain man, and there's like a city being built now. Nobody even knows. They say, oh yeah, I heard of that black man with a gun guy. I don't really know who he is. That made me laugh. I heard that like recently. And there are YouTube channels that have more viewers in that one episode than I had like in a year. There's ladies that they're showing their ARs, and that sounds almost funny. They're showing it, they're showing their ARs in public. And when YouTube had to corral a lot of stuff, a lot of gun stuff got snatched off of social media. They became real prohibitive. But in the early days, there was a boatload of channels, and YouTube took over from where podcasting was, and it kind of like balanced back out again. But there was a time when I saw the change, and I thought, wow. And then it was about maybe 4 or 5 younger African American, black, colored people get stuck on the numbers. I've been around long enough that I remember my birth certificate said Negro on it. So I've been everybody. I've been colored. I've been a Negro. I've been Afro-American. So you won't get me on the titles. I don't care. I'm an American, and I got the blood to prove it. I've done some stuff here. So I've watched some young people, and they don't even know how good they got it. And I'm glad. The only bad part is sometimes they think they've got there on their own, and they don't reach out to connect to the other people. Like the most uncomfortable pro-gun thing I did was when I worked with Pink Pistols. Early on, there was a group of gay, lesbian, and transgendered people that started a pro-gun movement. And I was not comfortable dealing with that. Being Christian, being grown up in the 60s, me. But this was a rights thing. So I had to like keep myself together, thinking they still people, they still Americans. Get your crap together, Blanchard. Shut up and help them. So they blew up. They did really well. And then I had the audacity to start a Latin American group. My Spanish is horrible, but I thought, hey, there's no Latin American group on Facebook. So I asked a couple of guys, why don't you start a page? And they're like, oh no, you do it. I was like, dude, I'm not from Latin America. I'm not. I did it anyway, right? So there's a huge Latin American group on Facebook, pro-gun. And I've been in the middle of all that stuff. So it's like help where you can and forget about it. Even though you don't get the benefits, it wasn't for me. That wasn't my thing. Plant the seed, let it go.
That's right. If we're doing things in the true sense of altruism, it's always got to be with others as the beneficiary. If you're doing it to enrich yourself, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you can't call it advocacy anymore. You can't do that. If you're going to do this so that for your own enrichment, then you need to be able to say that. And I'm not going to demonize somebody for that, but don't tell me you're doing it for everybody else while you're actually getting rich doing it, and that's your guiding principle. You can't do both. You have to choose. And so I think that that's a very important distinction that we need to make. Well, okay. Well, let me ask you this. I'm not going to shy away from this, and this isn't the kind of exchange that we're having. When you were behaving as salt and light, and you were doing things that you were serving in and around the church, is that an early call to pastorship, or was that just a call to Christ? And if so, where was the fork in the road there to decide that I want to lead? Tell me a little bit about that.
Wow, that's deep. Everything I was doing in the pro-gun movement, everything led me to be a pastor. From the media instruction, I got diction coaching from my job for a whole different reason, to make me a better speaker and facilitator. I can turn it on when I need to. Being able to debate people about the Second Amendment and then touch them where they need to be touched so that they'll listen, is the same as being a preacher, same as being an evangelist. And I call myself the chief evangelist for the right to keep and bear arms at one time. Those things crossed a lot. And I slowly saw, even when I started the 10th Cavalry Gun Club, and I had like this group of people that came to my lawn, and they're like, "Hey man, we're all going to the range. You want to go with us? You're like our leader." And I thought, don't be following me. Get off my lawn. I'm just a regular dude talking about, the right to keep and bear arms. I'm like, no, man, you told us some stuff. And I thought, my wife was like, "Them your people. You go outside." And I thought, what am I doing here? It was all because I was supposed to be up front. And whenever I tried to make money, that's when I failed. Whenever I did it like you just said, whenever I did it from the heart, I did it to help people. People responded in kind, and my voice changed. It was cool. I watched me grow. I know I'm more of a pirate than anything that God called. So he fixed me so that when it was time to help somebody else, my language changed. My voice, I turned very white all of a sudden. It was a voice somebody wanted to hear. I was soothing. I heard that a lot. "Oh man, your voice is so soothing." And I wanted to do that for the radio. No, that's not what he had me doing it for. He wanted me to do it to help that person in the nursing home, to help that person on the street. I remember I bought a house. My very first house I was renting with the guy out of the Marine Corps. It was in a really bad neighborhood, and the ambulance and police officers were flying down my street every day, and the drunks were walking by. And after I cut my grass, I sat on the curb, and this bum came next to me and sat next to me. And we started talking, and I'm thinking, what a world I live in. This guy, he opened up his bag, and he says, "Hey, you want a swig?" And I thought, man, you don't even know me. You offer me a drink. That's kind of cool. And I was like, "Nah, I'm good." And I had judged him in my heart. Again, I called him a bum. And he said, "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof." I almost fell off the curb. I was not expecting that guy to say that. He's quoting biblical scripture about the beauty of nature. And I thought, yeah. And God is in everything. And we had like the best conversation. And then Sunday came, and I went to church, and there was this deacon who said, "Hey, Rev, do you want some of this iced tea?" And he put down a glass and then snatched it up and said, "Too slow." And I thought, yesterday a bum offered me a drink. Today, a church member took it away. There's a lesson here. There's a lesson here. I became pastor of that church. He was kind of weird. He didn't know what to do because he remembered all the stuff that he had said. But it was like, all right, the Lord, you got jokes. You're gonna put me here, of all places. Yeah.
So, okay, so was there an actual light bulb moment when you said, because I'm not hacking on you, but I don't sense that either that or I didn't catch it. What made you say, I want to pastor, I want to lead? Was there something that was definitive, or was this gradual? Was this one of these things where you moved and you shook and you did these things and you looked back and said, listen, I can no longer deny what I have been procrastinating about, or did the light bulb come on? I mean, what was the deal?
I knew I was supposed to pastor at the age of 9.
Oh, okay.
But I did not want to be a pastor. I wanted to be a tough guy. I didn't think much of preachers. I thought they were just weak men preying on women, hollering and screaming and entertaining people. I had a really, well, it didn't change much. I had a real bad thing on clergy that are not doing what Jesus did. So I didn't want to be any part of that. And I grew up, and the world, things would happen, and I could see myself being either taught a lesson or learning from it. I remember when I was in California, I had this hunger for faith and religion, and I wanted to know about all the religions in the world. So I spent every Sunday for a year in a different church, different denomination. I was given my own theology class. I wanted to learn about Catholics and Methodists and Jewish, and I even ended up in a satanic meeting one time. That was scary. And they had cute girls though. And I had done so much. I had no idea that what I was doing was preparing me for later. But God knew. And by the time I think it was about 30, I got married, and life was still kicking me in the pants, and I was starting this firearms thing. Just early on, I had a dream that all my life had been preparing me for ministry. And I thought, Lord, look, you know where we've been. You know who I am. They're not going to like me. I'm not like these guys in here. And my first year in the church was real, exactly what I said. I caught all the grief that I was scared about. I mean, people were like, oh, well, he's pro-gun. We can't have him up in our church. We can't have him preach. He rides a Harley. He got the American flag. He's like one of them radical people. I mean, I heard it all. And yeah, I know. I fly Old Glory, and something's wrong with him. Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me if you take a look at what the Second Amendment represents in and of itself. So you've got this well-regulated, which means practiced. You got this militia, which is essentially a group of people ready to form to protect and serve their neighbors and their country, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you walk through what all these words mean in the Second Amendment. What you're saying is maximum freedom, maximum responsibility. And then you look at let's say a Christian as an example. If you think about it, they're not very far apart, because they're saying, I want you to do well, but I want you to do well within confines. And if you step outside of those confines, there's going to be an accountability that you cannot sever yourself from. Yeah. So you can do things, but there's a consequence that is undeniable. And if you think about it, they travel in very similar and parallel scapes.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's never a shock to me when I run across a Second Amendment advocate that's very rooted in their faith, because I'm telling you, I sense, I don't know if I'm extrapolating this right, Ken, or not, but I sense that they're very akin to one another. So they're very natural to be found in the same places.
One of the things that happened to me as a 2A person is early on, I thought everybody was like me. I thought everybody thought the same way I did. And when I found out they didn't, I was in shock. I had to learn that there were differences of opinion. And even though folks might live and look like you, they think different. And it wasn't until I became a part of this community that I realized I was conservative. I didn't even know about the conservative liberal thing. And when they said, well, your grandmother, I forgot how I was phrased, but that was like a trigger for me. My grandmother's revered in my eyes. My grandmother raised me. My mother was living in the 60s, man. She was having a good old time, and she didn't want to be burdened with a kid. So she gave me to my grandmother. My grandmother raised me. When I wasn't in school, I was on a farm in the sticks of Tidewater, Virginia. I went back in time for like every summer of my life until I was like 17. But I learned from my grandmother and my grandfather all the stuff, and their stuff was conservative. They were pro-gun, pro-God, pro-America. And because they didn't speak the King's English, people discounted them. But everything they gave me, their morals, all that stuff that I was brought up on is the good stuff. And I realized that same thing was in this movement. When I met people who said, "Hey, man, we're gonna do the Pledge of Allegiance before we have this meeting," I'm like, "Man, I haven't seen that happen since kindergarten, or I haven't done that since forever." Or we'll have a opening prayer before we start this thing. And I thought, I done been in so many meetings where that never comes up. But in this gun thing, man, we were all on the same accord. We didn't look like each other, but we acted like each other. And I thought, all right, this is almost like that song, when we all get to heaven, what a glorious time it will be. So It's like, all right, it's all good, man.
So what's your favorite memory from that farm, especially in those summers as a pup?
The pump, the water pump. We had to get our pump. You had to prime it to get the water out of it. And my grandmother lived near a swamp, the Great Dismal Swamp. And in the heat of the summer, washing your face in a metal bowl was like refreshing first thing in the morning. But that water was ice cold. And when you first grabbed that handle, it like, it was dry. Nothing was coming out of it. So you had to prime it with a little bucket that we had next to that. And you had to crank that thing up. And that was like a bicep workout right there. But as soon as that water came out, it was freezing cold, and it was fresh and not chlorinated. Came from a spring, and that was life to me. That was like it's funny when water is a treat, but it was a thing. And I look forward to, we had to boil our water for the tub, to shave my granddad and to bathe in. The water thing was everything for me, though.
Thank you. I just had a flood of memories come back surrounding that. I can remember when I was a little kid, my mom's family were farmers. They were very poor. And they had, I can remember as a little kid, they did have indoor plumbing, and it was fine. It was great. But they still kept the outhouse because my grandma preferred it, because that's what she had come up on. So I can remember being a little pup holding myself like this so I didn't fall down in, because I wanted to use the outside restroom. I wanted to use the old, what did she call that? Outhouse, whatever. I wanted to use the outhouse like grandma did. Okay. But I can remember, and granted, they had indoor plumbing and whatever else at that time, but they still, as a matter of preference, as a matter of habit, had the pump literally right there in front of the house with a cistern not far away from it. And I can remember there being an enamel, I don't remember, coffee cup like thing,
Yep.
Okay, porcelain, whatever, hanging on a hook. Okay, and you get to going like that. And give her all you had, because the first squirt or two out of it, maybe you didn't want. I don't know. But after that, stick her down in there and get a little bit and drink it. And I can remember thinking to myself, there's nothing better than the taste and the temperature of this water out of that cup, which sometimes had granddaddy long legs or a spider in. You had to chuck that out of there.
I know, right?
Yeah, but if I went to do that today and I saw a coffee cup or something with a spider in it, I'd be like, "Oh, totally unacceptable."
I know.
But no, I can remember that. I can almost taste it now that you said it. I haven't thought about that in forever. Thank you for that, man. That was fantastic. I really appreciate it. Wow. Okay. All right. So podcasting was a cinch. You were doing okay. How many episodes do you have under your belt? Would you know?
I think I quit at about 1,000.
Shut up.
Yeah. I quit at about
Man,
1,000.
that's a lot. Wow.
Yeah. Good times though. I had over 300 interviews with people in the industry. Some people I had to ambush, like Wayne LaPierre. We both started at the same time, and I remember at a cookout when they was first getting him to be the executive director, and he was there, and they were like, "This is going to be the big shot for the NRA." And I thought, "All right, cool. We sharing a hot dog, we talking." And when my podcast started on my 100th episode, I wanted to include him on it, and he was like, he kept blowing me off. He kept saying, "Well, I'm really busy, Ken." And I'd call, and the secretary would call and say, "Well, Wayne's not in right now. Wayne's overseas. Wayne." I kept getting all these crazy things, and I thought, "Oh, don't make me. Oh, you're gonna make me change. I got to go be a spy now." So I went to the headquarters, which was like an hour drive from my house, and I made an appointment with somebody else in the building. Got there and waited, and I knew I had to find the schedule. It's like, "All right, Mr. LaPierre is probably going to be leaving around 4. He'll be on this elevator. I got my recorder ready. And when he hits this floor, his security guys will go down first, and then I'll hit the button and I'll jump right in here." And exactly as what happened. I jumped in there, and he was like, oh, hi, Ken. I was like, "Hey, man, you got time now for an interview?" And I put the mic in front of him, and I said, this is Kenn Blanchard with the Urban Shooter Podcast. For my 100th episode, I have Wayne LaPierre from the National Rifle Association. "Wayne, how you doing?" And the elevator is only like a minute a ride. So he was like, it's great to see you, and I'm really appreciative of all you've done for the cause, and thank you on your 100th episode." And I was like, bingo. That's all I wanted to do. Thank you very much. And then when I got down to the bottom, and the security guys were like, "Hey, how'd he get on here?" And I'm thinking, deuces, see y'all later. And then that was my hardest episode to gather. But before that, it was all easy. Just calling people, because back in the day, you could stick your phone next to the microphone and try to get like live calls. We were doing some crazy stuff before StreamYard and before all these different apps popped up. It took a minute.
This conversation is wild. Guess who our 100th episode was with?
Who?
Doug Hamlin, the EVP and CEO of NRA.
Nice.
So
nice.
Your 100th episode was trying to nail down the big guy at NRA. Doug came on our program with a great deal of enthusiasm. He's been very supportive of the Iowa Firearms Coalition. He's been a breath of fresh air. He came out for Iowa's Second Amendment Day that we do at the Iowa Capitol every year. Our legislative session is essentially from January to, it's supposed to be done by the tail end of April, beginning of May, and it usually is. Anyway, so it's a short session. We don't have to politic all year long, thank goodness. Anyway, he came out. Of course, you can imagine it was like -7, all the things that you really weren't hoping for. But him and some folks from NRA were kind enough to come out and spend time, and they sat down with a group of people, off to the side in a restaurant the night before and said, "Listen, we've had problems, and we've got these things well in hand. This is what we're doing to move forward. We recognize problems. We've made corrections. We're out here trying to rebuild trust, and the only way to do that is to be among you and talk about these things, take your questions, and see if we can help." And because that's what he wants to do. And they immediately run right out there and did that. And people said, "Hey, this is my problem," or "I'm having this concern." And he worked to link these folks up with places and ways that it could be handled. And man alive, it was exactly what needed to happen. And I was so glad that he was genuine enough to do that. And NRA said, "Oh yeah, we stepped in it. We're not continuing to step in it. So let's get back to business, son." It was what we needed to have happen. It was what we needed to hear when we needed to hear it. So that was a breath of fresh air. It was very welcome. I didn't have to ambush him in the elevator. I didn't have to do the podcast pirate thing, and spit on my hands and hoist the black flag and start slitting throats. It wasn't like that. But I'm glad that you did when you pioneered things like that. So thank you very much. Because without that kind of perseverance, you and many others, I don't know where we'd be with some of these things, because I can remember watching some things on television, which is a little rare, mostly programs rather than news, or hear on a lot of AM radio that I was listening to at the time, them talk about podcasting, but it was all in the genre of, well, these aren't journalists. They're rookies. They don't know what's going on. They're not professionals. Therefore, you can't expect much. And oh, by the way, what was really seemed to me, I was easily bamboozled, I'll admit. What seemed to me relevant at the time is, well, these people don't have any journalistic integrity. They're not accountable for the mistakes they make, and they're not investigative journalists. And I'm like, oh, maybe that has some credence. Boy, have I found out that that's wrong. Now, podcasters and some of these bloggers do make genuine mistakes. And what I'm seeing now, I am concerned about this, Ken, is the number of influencers out there are not much different than the news. They want to be first to press. They want to put breaking across everything that they post on the internet so they can be the people that are circulated, because that's how they make their money. I will tell you, at the risk of offending every one of you out there listening to that are in these influencers, you have a greater responsibility than many of you are demonstrating. You shouldn't be first to press. You should be accurate at press. So be thinking about that, because people like me that are discerning, people like the Ken that have been there and done that, we aren't going to continue clicking on your breaking stories when they're not breaking or they're just not true. So I'm sorry. I had my tangent moment too, but little did I realize that the bloggers, that the podcasters that were the early pioneers that were being claimed to be somehow less professional because they didn't have a $250,000 studio, ended up being more genuine and more dedicated than the fly by night or fly by the seat of my pants, let's get this out there and move on to the next thing, journalists that were not interested in the truth. They were interested in themselves. It's like you mentioned earlier. How bad is that?
We've coming back around, though. There was a time when there was journalistic integrity. There was a time when I'm Walter Concrete, and thank you for the news. There was a time when there was a voice that you believed in. And then there was this thing called TMZ, where it was like Hollywood and gossip and popular news. And that took over the news that we have today. Everybody wanted to have the juicy, spicy, not news, but entertainment. And there was a time in our early parts of podcasting where folks are trying to get views, and they might say stuff or do stuff that made people like Wayne afraid to be on camera because they had to guard themselves. So I took it upon myself, and I've done this. I've had some really good interviews with people that I respected, but during our conversation on air, they were raw, and I thought, this won't make them look good, so I can't air this. Or there was a technical glitch, and they didn't sound as good as they could, so I didn't broadcast that episode. And some of that stuff, nobody knows. I'm like, well, I had a special guest last week, but he couldn't make it, and it's kind of a lie. He was on there, but the thing didn't work. We had a technical problem, and I had to chop it up. I didn't want to put that crap on the air for everybody to hear. And then later, when things got better, and everybody was podcasting and blogging, and YouTube was blowing up, then I had an issue with a few people that I thought were ambulance chasing, that were they were using race, they were using emotion, they were doing just like the race baiters now to get their YouTube channel, and the stuff was working. People in the industry was falling for their stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I'm not in that crowd. I was trying to get people together, and you're separating them again. Knock yourself out. I'm out.
So you're not currently podcasting any longer, or are you paused, or are you moving on, or I don't understand what status you're at with that?
Still got all my gear. I podcast a show called Faith's Journey. I'm on a break right now, but once a week I do a positive message, Christian message, a sermonette. Okay. But at one time I had like 4 podcasts going on different subjects at the same time. Wow. Had a network in my head. That was too much. That was too much.
you're published now. I mean, not obviously podcasting, blogs, and all the things associated with that, but you're published as an author now. Yes.
Yes,
Tell me about that.
I've been writing since the 80s. This is I think my 15th book, maybe. No, my 12th book. My best book, actually, called Finding Joy in the Blues. It's a personal journey. It came out in February. But one of the best books, or better books I wrote, was called Black Man with a Gun. And that was published to be like a guide to the Second Amendment for people of color. And anybody who was interested in learning a different history, it was in there. And I was trying to give an homage to a book that I saw when I was a kid called, my brain just went off. Yeah, that means I'm tired. There's a book by Robert F. Come on, Robert, what's your name? Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, I'll figure it out. But there's a Negroes with Guns, the author of Negroes with Guns. So I created a book called Black Man with a Gun. And that started the first time I got, noticed as an author. But I've been writing for a minute. And the reason you'll see my name with two N's is there is a Dr. Kenn Blanchard, Kenn H. Blanchard, the 1 Minute Manager guy. And he's prolific on Amazon. He's always in leadership seminars, and he writes motivational books. He was big in the 80s. So I put two N's on Ken so that you know it's me and not Dr. Kenn H. Blanchard. He's probably in his 90s now. But yeah, I write a lot. And this last book talks about the transition, just a little bit of me from guns to guitars, and the depression and the issues I had being a caregiver. And it's not a deep read. You can read it on a good weekend in the bathroom. Good bathroom read, brother. And it gives you a little insight into my life now. You might have heard of me before, but this is how I am now.
Okay. So you're telling me that guitar has been cathartic,
yes,
and adventuresome at the same time.
That's a good word. Oh yeah, it's been my therapy, string therapy for days. I always loved music. I always wanted to play the guitar. I always wanted to be like B.B. King, and I didn't know it took work. I didn't know that blues was as difficult as it was. I thought, how hard it couldn't be. I mean, people that don't even know how to read music are playing blues. I learned that there's a whole genius behind it that I was not even privy to. And then I learned that all the music of my past, from the 60s on up to now, has like blues based. And even when I was in the Marine Corps and my roommates were playing Aerosmith and Journey and Foreigner, and I thought, man, turn that rock off. And they're like, you still like that disco? We used to have these music fights in the barracks. I love that music now because now I know the basis for it. I know the tunes. I know it's reminiscent of my 80s and 90s time. So now that I'm trying to learn how to play it on guitar and training my voice to actually sing, it's been fun. And I needed some fun in my life. So music is amazing. Music is a pretty good drug.
Fantastic. Okay, we've got a little insight into Reverend Kenn Blanchard. We have a little insight into your beginnings, what's informed you, the things that you've been part of, life, perseverance, destination, those kinds of things. So what do we need to know? As we said, veteran and prolific podcaster and published author. You've got a long list of accolades, man. Kudos and congrats, number one. Number two, what do we need to know before we cap off? I'm curious, what have you left out that you think that folks need to hear?
If you need a friend, if you need somebody to listen to you, if you need just to vent, I'm here. Find me on social media. Reach out to me. I'm still just a dude. Just glad to be a dude playing a dude. I'm here. I've actually told you guys more than I've said probably in 30 years, all in one show. This is the longest. I've been rambling forever. I had not This is the only podcast I've talked this much. Y'all caught me on a good day. Hopefully I haven't bored you, but all I want you to know that I'm a regular guy who loves life, who loves people. I love my country. This is the best country in the world, and the people that will fight for it are my people. Gun people are the best people, and I've always learned that. I've always known that, and I can't say it enough. So if you need somebody to talk to, I know how hard it can be sometimes for somebody to identify with somebody like us, because we're not like everybody else. But it's okay. I'm your friend and your brother from another mother. And just in case nobody else tells you this today, I love you. There's not a damn thing you can do about it.
Fantastic. We will take it. Thank you for that. I'm a pray with my eyes wide open type of guy. I haven't done this before, but you know how it is when the Spirit leads you. You're best to shut your yap and do what you're compelled to do, right? Or if it's in a biblical framework anyway. So I don't think it's inappropriate at all. Would you be willing to pray us out?
Oh, sure, man. Our Father and our God, everlasting Creator, King of all things. Father, we've come before you, maybe unintentionally, but maybe on purpose. We ask that you first forgive us of everything we've done contrary to your will. We ask that you would now hear this prayer. Touch each person that's listening. Touch their families. Touch their heart. Give them what they stand in need of, if it be according to your will. Father, thank you for all that you've already given us. Thank you for this life. Thank you for this time. I ask that you would bless this country, this podcast, this host, and every ear listening, and every family listening that's represented by the listener. We'll know that you blessed us because that's how you are. We love you and we thank you. And it's in Jesus' mighty name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Amen. Reverend Kenn Blanchard, black man with a gun. Thank you for your time. Off we go.